February. And I have great news. Monday night, the sun sets at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. We're into the sixes come Monday night. So get excited. And I think March 12th is the time change. So we're making our way through winter. So welcome to the Rotary called of Beavercreek. Thank you to the O'Shaughnessys today for being our greeters. To Eric, our ticket master. And he just put a permanent thank you on here to Beth for always helping with the setup. Pete, Mark, and Mike for the great programs, and Jim for the website. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Danny Jerry.
Would you please join me in prayer? Blessed are you, Lord of creation. You feed the whole world with your goodness and your grace, your kindness and your mercy. You nourish and sustain us, and you do good for us all. Bless this food to our body and for your use in Rotary. Amen. Amen.
Mr. Joe Jenkins.
We are at, we have, William Chestnut, Bingham. He's a guest of the chair department, so there you go there.
Welcome.
And I think I'll throw his name out there. Dick Gold just stepped in. Couple minutes late. He'd love to pay a fine for that. Oh, he's already here, man. I should have to pay a fine for that.
I'm here before you.
Okay. Mr. Don Adams, are you ready? Not ready. Hold on your one class.
Ready. Give him a hand. Let's not be carried away. Today is February 3rd. It's amazing. We've already gone through one month of this year. It's really flying by. But it's also bubblegum day. Doggy date night. Elmo's birthday. National Carrot Cake Day. National Wear Red Day. I see a few people wear red today. Do we know what red's for? It's for women's heart conditions. Health. So National Wedding Ring Day. National Four Chaplains Day. Story about four chaplains. I watched that one time. That was really a good show. Those guys gave up their seats. Yeah, that's real service. It's also Take a Cruise Day. I think I'd rather do that than be here. The day the music died. I think we all remember that. And it's Working Naked Day. This week we had a couple of things that we missed. Appreciate your Social Security check day. Hairless freezing over day. That seems to be appropriate. And tomorrow is stay at home with your dog and drink bourbon day. That's not necessarily true, but I just made it up. So it sounds toxic. And this day in history, in 1743, the Philadelphia established a pest house to quarantine immigrants. So in 1876, Albert Spalding invested $800 to start a sporting goods company, manufacturing first official baseballs, tennis balls, basketballs, golf balls, and footballs. Made a lot more than $800 on that. In 1802, circus owner P.T. Barnum bought his world famous elephant Jumbo. In 1941, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld federal wage and hour law, sets minimum wage and maximum hours. As we talked about earlier, 1943, the 4 chaplains drowned after giving up their life jackets to others.
Yeah.
As the U.S. Army transport ship Dorchester sinks in the North Atlantic. And in 1959, the day the music died, the plane crash had killed musician Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, J.P. Richardson, also known as the Big Bopper, and the pilot near Clear Lake, Iowa. In the news, yesterday was Groundhog Day. You all saw the movie? It reminds me of Tom Brady retiring. Speaking of Brady, though, Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, wants him to sign a 1-day contract so he can retire from the Patriots. And I know going forward it's going to be tough for him because he's going to retire, and financially I'm concerned. He still has $35 million coming from Tampa Bay, as well as his new contract with Fox Sports at $37.5 million a year for 10 years.
Level poverty.
Yeah. That's 375 plus the 35. Yes, I think he's going to struggle. Also, the U.S. is tracking a suspected Chinese high-altitude surveillance balloon. It's over Montana right now. The U.S. says it's not a threat, but I guarantee if I had something to do with it, we would shoot it down. Doesn't need to be there. And also here in Beavercreek, that's good news for, see Paul here, but Beavercreek City Schools received nearly $4.5 million to fund a student mental health service, and they plan to place a full-time social worker at each school building. Some interesting things that I came across this week. The oldest wooden wheel has been around for more than 5,000 years. And those of you that have to dust your house every day with all that dust, dead skin cells are the main ingredient. Each person will lose 200 million skin cells each hour. And Sudan has more pyramids than any other country in the world. There's 138 pyramids in Egypt, but Sudan has 255. And for the doctors in here, you'll know this, the circulatory system is more than 60,000 miles long in babies. Once you grow to adulthood, it's approximately 100,000 miles. And that little heart pumps every day, pumping all through there. It's amazing. The cornea is one of the only 2 parts of the human body without blood vessels. This one I thought was interesting. German chocolate cake. Where do you think it was invented? Texas.
You buy German?
His name was Sam German. Trans-Siberian Railway is the longest railroad in Russia, but it's also the longest one in the world. The journey takes 7 days. It's a one-way trip, during which time passengers pass through 8 different time zones and cross 3,901 bridges.
Oh.
And the Mississippi River, the 3rd largest watershed in the world, is 2,340 miles long. If you had 1 drop of water, it takes approximately 90 days to travel the full length. And this one surprised me. The Windy City nickname has nothing to do with Chicago's weather.
Oh.
If you live in Chicago, you might already know this random fact, but we're betting most people don't know. It was coined by a 19th century journalist who were referring to the fact that its residents were windbags and full of hot air. There were 2 statisticians that were traveling in an airplane from LA to New York. About an hour into the flight, the pilot announced that they had lost an engine. But don't worry, there's 3 left. However, instead of 5 hours, it's going to take 7 hours to get to New York. A little later, he announced that the second engine had failed. But they still had 2 left. But it would take 10 hours now to get to New York. Somewhat later, the pilot came across the intercom again and announced the third engine had died. Never fear, he announced, because the plane can only fly on one engine. However, it could now take 18 hours. At this point, one of the statisticians turned to the other and said, "Gee, I hope we don't lose the last engine. We'll be up here forever." My wife's been missing for a week now. Police said to prepare for the worst. So I had to get out of Goodwill and get her clothes back. She burst into the recreation room with the retired Paul. She holds her clenched fist in the air and announces, "Anyone who can guess what's in my hand can take me out to dinner tonight." A witty old gentleman in the rear shouts, "And Edwin." As he thinks for a minute, says, "Close enough." There was a husband and wife who were on the ninth green when suddenly she collapsed. "Help me, dear," she groans to her husband. The husband calls 911 on his cell phone, talks for a few minutes, picks up his putter and lines up his putt. His wife raises her head off the green and stares at him. "So I'm dying here and you're putting?" "Don't worry, dear," said the husband. "They found a doctor on the second hole and he's coming to help you." "Well, how long will it take it to get here?" "No time at all. Everybody's already agreed to let him play through." There was a distinguished young woman on a flight from Switzerland, and a priest sat down beside her. And then she said, "Father, may I ask you a favor?" He says, "Of course. What may I do for you?" "Well, I brought an expensive electronic hairdryer that is well over the customs limit, and I'm afraid they'll confiscate it. Is there any way you could carry it through customs for me under your robes, perhaps?" "I would love to help, dear, but I must warn you, I will not lie." When they got to customs, she let the priest go ahead of her. The official asked, "Father, do you have anything to declare?" "From the top of my head down to my waist, I have nothing to declare." The official thought that was kind of a strange answer. "And what do you declare from your waist to your floor to the floor?" "I have a marvelous little instrument designed to be used on a woman, but which is to date unused." Go ahead, Father. Next. The minister was completing a temperance sermon. With great emphasis, he said, "If I had all the beer in the world, I'd take it and pour it in the river." With even greater emphasis, he said, "And if I had all the wine in the world, I'd take it and pour it in the river." And then finally shaking his fist in the air, he said, "And if I had all the whiskey in the world, I'd take it and pour it in the river." The sermon was complete. He sat down. The song leader stood very cautiously and announced with a smile, nearly laughing, "Let's start singing hymn number 365. Shall we gather at the river?" That's a good one. As always, I like to leave you with a couple of positive thoughts. Just one small thought in the morning can change your whole day. One positive thought. And it's never too late to be what you might have been. For today's fines, if you have been on a cruise, that's $1. If you've worked naked, that's $1. If you listen to Buddy Holly, should be everybody, that's $1. If you've eaten German chocolate cake in the last week, that's $1. And if you're not wearing your Rotary pin, that's $1. And now the man for happy bucks.
When Don starts his presentation, I usually go get my food, and then, so when he's announcing the fine, sometimes I don't understand the context, so I don't know if I want to understand the context of when one would be working naked and what story that involved. So I want to do stories. Okay, who's got happy bucks? Yeah.
My happy buck doubles as an announcement. The pancake breakfast is back. It's tax day this year. Start thinking about who you might want to have help us with sponsorships. We're super excited.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Beth?
Our house has been on the market for like 4 months and I got an offer finally. So hopefully it's cash 2-week closing. So hopefully nothing goes wrong.
Brad? Anybody else?
How it is today.
Shannon Grant?
So last weekend, or actually Tuesday, the Beavercreek hockey team got to go play on the nation wide arena there in Columbus, and it was pretty awesome watching the guys get out there and beat the guys they were playing. This weekend on Sunday is their last season game before they go into the season final tournaments. They get to go play at Hobart Arena, so kind of cool to be on a hockey team and get to play two of the big arenas in the area.
Goodness, thank you. Let's change this. Okay, y'all gotta get happier as the springtime comes. Do it for me. So today's ticket drum night.
Chicken throwing.
We are getting towards the end here. I think about 10 cards left. We have number 3, 2, 4. Yes.
Start.
2, 3, 8. It's like my favorite part of the routine. So that Sally here with the winning ticket?
She only bought the whole roll of tickets.
Yeah. There's a 20% chance though, you will pay a $5 fine. What are you looking for? Doesn't even know anymore. I think he just said that. He's like, you long to the doctor's hard. So when we get to the last part of the deck, he's gonna be like, there it is. There's the Buck Rose. Yeah, Buck Rose. So the Buck Rose, it's gonna be a great, lot of money for the Christmas basket project. So yeah, keep playing. Like I say, keep gambling, but only here at Rotary. Not gambling, it's charity. So, any announcements for the club?
Oh, yes.
Yes, Joe.
So I have been, the last couple of weeks, I've been trying to get information on, if anybody last year did any volunteering at any event. I think I've already talked to Beth, Brian, already talked to you. If you've done any work whatsoever last year, let me know and what event it was, so I can add you and put you in our gear.
2 things, that is work done for Rotary. And is that calendar year or fiscal year?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, so for the entire calendar year, if you did any volunteering for Rotary, please let Joe know. Sir.
It's four-way speech time again. And the judging will be held at the Beavercreek High School on the 9th of March at 4. I'm looking for one more judge. And if you're interested, come see me after Rotary. Thank you.
Sorry, I was trying to see if I would be available. And I have an excuse, my wife is TUI.
So what's the date again?
March 9th,
That was Saturday.
it's a Friday, I think so. It's a Friday? Thursday. Thursday. Okay, any other announcements?
Oh, no.
Monday at 7 a.m. will be our February first Monday coffee. This one's at Winans at Pentagon. Last time it was at Winans, there was a big storm in the morning, Dave. So let's hope there's no storms. I have a reminder going out on Sunday, email going out. So that's Monday at 7 a.m. at Winans on Pentagon for coffee. Come join us. And lastly, going around right now is the greeter sign up. So please, everyone, take a moment to fill that out and make sure I get my pen back. I've had that one for a long time. Trying that. So with that, no one else has anything else. We will turn it over to Beth Hamworker to introduce our speaker.
Thank you. Well, most of you know who Paul is, but I'm gonna embarrass him a little bit and tell you the wonderful things he's done, because he probably hasn't told you, because he's very humble and very wonderful, aren't you, Dr. Paul?
I don't know about.
Well, I had the pleasure, he was my professor, back at Wright State. I think I got an A, I don't know, maybe. And, but I've been lucky enough that he's taught me and now I get to work with him. So it's a real pleasure to be able to have that full circle. And, so I've been with James about a year now. So I've gotten to absorb even more knowledge from Dr. Paul. And, I've gotten to see him do some really amazing things and just be very kind and wonderful to anybody he meets. That's wonderful. So I told you I was gonna brag on him a little bit. I don't know if you know that he came to the US from Mauritania in 1980. He got his, and that's Northwest Africa, if you don't know where that is. I had to look it up myself because I was like, Mauritania, I've never heard of that. So it's like, but he got his MBA at Ball State and then got his PhD from Arizona State. And he has his chartered financial analyst designation, so he's really smart. All right. And he started teaching at Wright State after he graduated, but he got called away to help his home country. He was an advisor to the president for several years in Mauritania. And then he became the ambassador to Mauritania in the US. So he lived in DC as an ambassador for a couple years as well. And as his time as an ambassador, he worked to assure economic development and financial security for Africa. Boy, those are big, that's a tall order, I would say. So anyway, he's a great guy, huh, Dr. Paul?
know about that.
But surprisingly, he gave us all his glitz and glam of DC and came back to teach in Dayton, Ohio, of all places. And he's published many articles, co-authored books, presented numerous papers, and spoken at lots of conferences, all about the wide world of finance. So we're lucky to have him at James Investment for 21 years. And he is using his vast knowledge and wisdom as our director of research. And he gets to have the pleasure of listening to him speak about the economy and what to expect. So Dr. Paul. Thank you. Oh, I didn't share it. Told you I did. You should just have to let me start the slideshow. Should just click. Click. There you go, sir.
Hey, thank you very much. Thank you, Beth. Thank you very much. That was a student that I'm going to change her grade from A to B. She was one of the smartest students in the class, and she went to get a law degree after that at American University in Washington, D.C. We are glad to have her in our wealth management. She also teaches at Wright State. Thank you, Beth, for that nice introduction. She was asking me earlier if I was worried about this presentation today. I said, well, we're going to flood the crowd. Everybody there, and thank you for having us every year. It's a pleasure to see all of you. And today is the 110th anniversary of the ratification of the 16th Amendment to the Constitution. Anybody know what that amendment is about?
Income tax.
Income tax.
Oh.
Give Congress the right to enact federal income tax. Don, you forgot about that. Tom Brady, even though he's making all that money, the university has 101 million shares in FTX.
Oh,
A lot of times these people, the athletic world gets a lot of money, but there was a lot of money in this issue. His ex-wife has 660,000 shares of FTX.
oh my God.
Should probably be worth zero. But that's not what brought us today. Right? The economy is in good shape overall, and we'll see why. And but this recession risk is on the rise. We are in late cycle growth, and I'll tell you in a minute what that means. And there are some favorable indicators. The labor market remains strong. You have seen the number this morning, 170,000 new jobs. Consumer balance sheets are strong, a lot of cash, almost above the pre-pandemic levels. But there are some unfavorable indicators. manufacturing, new order deteriorate, suggesting a slowdown in economic growth, and also tightening lending standard by banks. And yield curve inversion. Basically, a yield curve inversion means that it gives more money in short-term security than in long-term security. In normal time, you should be paid more for long-term security because they are more risky. In time of close to recession, you usually see this type of situation where you see a yield curve inversion. We are in a mid-cycle. Usually the economy go in 4 cycles: early, mid, late, and recession. In late cycle, what you should see usually is the growth moderating, economic growth moderating, credit tightening, earning companies start going under pressure, policy, economy, Federal Reserve policy, contracting, and also you see sales of company slowing down. And that's where we are today. But this is different this time because of the very tight labor market. Usually in this time, historically, you're going to start seeing labor going down. But this time is different. The labor market is very tight. There is 1.9 jobs for every unemployed person. There are 5.8 million people today who don't have a job, but there are 11 million jobs available. And that basically there is a mismatch between the qualification of people. COVID played a big role in this. A lot of people decide to retire early, didn't want to go back in the labor force. Digital immigration played a role in it. A lot of people in a family, usually you have husband and wife working. Sometimes some of them decide, okay, one of us going to keep working, and the other one. Those type of changes were induced by COVID, basically. COVID had changed a lot of the behavior in the workplace, and that's the reason for it. But how can we talk about a late cycle when we have a low labor employment? Today, the labor employment that came out this morning was 3.4%. That's one of the lowest in 50 years. And the cost of inflation is going up, the cost of borrowing money is higher, and earning reported by company are going down. And the reason basically come from the consumer. Okay. Healthy consumer balance. A lot of people had a lot of cash on hand, and that basically came from the money that the government gave during COVID. $2.3 trillion per hand. And those $2.3 trillion right now, there is $1.5 trillion left. Basically, the people who spend the most are people who are lower income household. Because when inflation go up, they spend more of their income in the 2 necessities like food and gas, etc. But the wealthier crowd still has that money. That's money going to go to the stock market, to different places. And basically, the part of the household that really gets hit hard are people who are in lower income. And you can see that in credit card balances are going up for the lower income, and you don't see it in the wealthier portion of the population. There are some signs that the economy is slowing down, and you see that in hard data. Hard data means new orders. You can see it in inventory level, production, supply, delivery, that type of thing. You can see that in this purchasing manager index that people look at, published by the Institute for Supply Management. It's a monthly survey of 400 companies. They ask supply chain managers, what do they think? How's the economy doing? And you can see the new orders are contracting. Usually when the level is below 50, that's a sign that the economy is contracting. The new order means they ask what are the new order from customer for future month. That number is below 50%. That's clearly that means the economy will become right. Usually a number below 45 say that we're gonna have a recession. The bank also are tightening their lending. The Federal Reserve every quarter send a survey to 80 largest domestic banks and 24 branches of foreign banks that are here in the US, asking them about credit, how tight the credit. They look at application, how tight it is. For example, today, they are not giving credit if you have a FICO score of 620 to 680. You are not going to get the credit card. Okay. And they start looking at this score and asking people what score you're going to give somebody a new car. And they are also showing that they are tightening credit for large companies, okay, because they see the number are softening. And for that reason, this is another sign that the economy is slowing down.
I'm gonna move the pictures are blocking your beautiful charts. I'm gonna try to drag it out of the way.
Just collapse it.
So she's very smart. That's why you have to have-
Brandon told me to do it, but didn't do it.
it's doing it.
So maybe it's because it's overturning.
You better, it's showing.
Yeah, that's what she said, is what she's saying. Yeah.
There we go.
Drag it to the.
Drag it.
Yeah, drag it to the top.
There we go, see? Fell out.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you about the cash. Well, we're talking about the labor market, the night labor market. Probably saw the number this morning. Very, very strong numbers. 517,000 new jobs in January. The employment rate 3.4%, lowest in decades. Wage growth at 4.4%. That's something that we're going to see later. Going to worry the people in the Fed when you have wage growth at 3.4%. That's the type of inflation that is sticky. Which means you're not going to tell people we're going to lower your wage. And I think that's something that's really the Fed is usually looking at. Now, again, the labor market, 3.4 in Ohio, we have an employment rate of 4.2%. A little higher than the national average. But our economy is doing well. We are the 7th largest source of US GDP. We are the 9th largest exporter state. And we also are the 4th largest Ohio manufacturer, state manufacturer in the US. Our economy is more diversified than most places because we have agriculture, we have high tech, we have different type of industry. We are rated AA1 by Moody's with a positive outlook, which means really the finance of the state are in a good shape. We are also the 2nd producer of eggs in the country. I'll tell you later why. That's a good thing to have. You think the 1st producer of eggs in the United States. Anybody know who was the 1st producer? I'm.
How's it get?
Well, she's smart. Iowa, Ohio, Indiana, these are the biggest producer of eggs. Talking about the stock market, what everybody else likes to get about. This is what's happened last year. Large cap, small cap, value rose, everybody lost money. Bitcoin, 76%. Only thing that went up last year was X, 59.87%. And the 0.1% last December. Bird flu. Ohio produced 10 billion eggs last year. That should help our GDP a little bit. Anyway, last year, the market were really hurting. You can see there is a big rally in January. Bitcoin is up 50%. January 1st, 52%. Depending on what kind of coin you own. These are the sector. The best sector last year was oil. And the communication service, communication basically that because Meta, which is Facebook, and then Google, those are really got hit really hard. You can see consumer discretionary, that's mostly Amazon. Price went down. These big companies have a big weight in the sector itself. And that's when they go down, the sector really get hurt. You can see financial every place. The best place to be in last year are in defensive sector. Defensive sector like consumer staple. People are gonna go to Kroger no matter what. Okay, and the utilities and healthcare. These type of sectors can do well when the economy is slowing down or in recession. And oil last year is because of what's happened in Russia, Ukraine, part of it, supply and demand type of. And there are some more downside risk, even though in the last few days the market has been going up. The lag effect of the Fed rate hike, the interest rate hike take a while to get in. There are some sensitive, very sensitive sector like housing. The day the interest rate go up, mortgage go up, housing go down. But there are some others that take time for those rates to filter through and have an impact. The Fed also is tightening quantitatively, not just interest rate. They are reducing their balance sheet. They are buying back bonds, etc. to take out some of the cash out there. Companies are reporting a lot of negative earnings growth. We'll talk about that. There is a global slowdown. And also now there is an alternative to stock. People now are buying bonds because they are earning more on these bonds. You can get 4.5% today in a 3-month T-bill. Cash was trash for the last 15 years. Cash is king today because the stock market has gone down. This is the equity allocation. That means how much people are putting in stock. And we're talking about the retail side, the average individual, and you can see there, here's our line to show you that they have not sold a lot during this session. Historically, when the economy slowed down, when people see a recession coming, people start selling stock. This time they did not, because they have 20 years of stock going up, and every time the stock goes down, people start saying, well, this is a dip, I'm going to buy. And that's why they stayed in the market. Okay. A lot of institutions sold, but the average person did not. They are way up there in the equity allocation. And that's why a lot of them lost money. More headwind for the stock market, and you can see that in falling earnings. Okay, then this is the next 12 months earnings per share, which we are projection by the analysts are projecting that the earnings going to go down. You heard that yesterday after the market closed. Amazon reported the cloud computing business down, and that's why their stock is down, exporting lower earnings. Apple have their first quarter revenue down in 4 years, and Google, they said their ad revenue is down, second time since 2004 when they started. A lot of revenues, these companies are going down, which show that the economy is weakening. Okay. Talking about Google, when I was at Wright State, in the business school, a lot of these engineering school professor come to see me sometime and he said, which good stock to buy? And one day one of them came and he said, I heard this company called Google when it came out. You think I should buy it? I said, no, that's a bad idea. And he said, why? I said, that's just a search engine. At the time, Google was just a search engine. And for the last 15 years or so, every time I see him, said, how is the Google price today? First Google went to 500 and then split and then went to 500. But that's just tell you what little finance professor know about stock market. And again, the earnings really are slowing down. That's a sign that the economy is doing well, and you're going to see more of that. That doesn't mean you should not stay in stock, because the Fed really going to play a big role in what should be a stock market direction. And but that's basically a reality there. Now you can see here This is the purchasing management index tree about. They're basically the survey that they have done, and it's usually the earnings. I mean, if it's going down 6 months from now, the earnings of the company going to go down. Okay, now that PMI or the purchasing manager index is at 47.4 in January, below 50, which is saying that in next 6 months, earning of company going to go down. It's a leading indicator, basically telling us that in the manufacturing sector, you should see earning going down in the next 6 months. Well, last year, the biggest concern were what? What do you think the biggest concern last year? Runaway inflation was the number one. Number two, energy shortage in Europe because of the war. Number three was the Chinese endless COVID restriction. Okay. Now, what do you think are the biggest worries? China reopening. Because when China reopened, the price of oil will go up because they are a big consumer of commodity. But also the good another perspective of that, the good news is that the supply chain problem will ease. The problem of supply chain was a COVID restriction. But again, people think inflation will start going up again because of China pushing the price of commodity and oil up. The second biggest worry today is the Fed. What's the Federal Reserve going to do with interest rates? Are they going to keep tightening? Right now, they just February 1st, they said 25 basis points, quarter point. The Fed chair said may have 1 or 2 future. Is this the end of the cycle? Because interest rates play a big role in the economy. And if at the end of the cycle, you should expect a stronger stock market. Conclusion then, we should see below average earning growth. We may see a rotation. Rotation meaning from one sector to another. So last year, the best sector were what? The defensive, the utility, healthcare, and stable. The economy if the Fed start moving, changing the tone, then we should see a reversal. We're going to go to more cyclical, industrial, material, technology. Those are the things that should do well. And there's all the one also lost much money last year. The thing that was the most last year, you can see it in the rally in January. The stock that went way up are the stock that lost a lot in December. And most of the time you will see these type of things. Second part of the market is the bond. Well, this was one of the worst years in the bond market since 1928. This is the worst year for the bond. And usually you have a negative correlation between bond and stock. That means when stocks go up, bonds go down. Last year, correlation became close to 1, which means they all went down together. And hopefully we are seeing now decoupling of that correlation. We're going to see more negative correlation where the bond going to be hedged again. And the issue again is the Fed. As the Fed slow down, the Fed cut rate. Okay. At the beginning, they were saying we are not going to stop until labor goes down. I think now they are giving up on that notion. Labor is not going down. Because historically, every time they increase interest rates, economy go down, labor market start going down. If the labor market goes down, means demand for goods and services go down because people don't have jobs. Demand for goods and services goes down, inflation goes down. That's usually the historical process. But this time, because of COVID and because of this new reality in the job market is not going down no matter how high they go. And people are hoping that the Fed will realize that and not keep tight. Anyway, they want a soft labor market. They want an employment rate above 4%. Right now it's 3.2 today. And initial jobless claim 300,000. That is not happening. Yeah. And also, a lot of people were worried about deterioration of liquidity. What's happened in 2008 was an issue bank run on banks. People were worried about people running on banks. A lot of people were worried this time that the crisis in Ukraine and the crypto would have an impact on the financial market. It did not affect the market. The housing market went down, not affect the liquidity in the marketplace. And that's another thing that's really is different this time. Inflation. Again, inflation June hit the highest 9.1%. That's the highest in 50 years. And that's really, the Fed started hiking by 75 bps 3 times in a row to lower, and inflation looks like it's going down. But it's not going down in some area. Core service, including housing, is still very, very, very high. And I think the Fed chair said the other day they see a lot of improvement in these numbers. There is a headline that what you hear about the core CPI or consumer price index is basically inflation minus the volatile food and energy. Food and energy food, that's called core CPI. And that's what really they look at, core CPI. And that has all kind of healthcare, all kind of other items that people are in the basket of the consumer price index. Credit spread. This is another indication also of an economy doing a lot better than people expect. The spread is the difference between what the government is paying you on the bond and the average company, basically credit companies. Okay, for example, the 10-year treasury may be paying 10%. If the credit-worthy company is paying 10%, the difference between those two is called the credit spread. In that time, that difference is huge. Okay, because people perceive the risk as high, and they're going to say, well, the company should pay me a lot more than the federal government is paying me because the risk is going up. That's called the spread, the widening spread. The spread here did not go up. Okay, and that's why a lot of people say today, why should I buy a bond from Apple paying 4.2%, while I can buy a treasury bill 3 months at 4.5. Understand that? That's basically what that credit spread is. Clearly, the credit spread did not go up. The difference between a good company credit, the federal government credit, it's not that big. Okay, and usually in that time, you can see it in 2007, it shot up there. Okay, that's mean the difference between investment grade company and the 10-year treasuries shot up big time. People perceive the risk of that company a lot higher. Today, you can see the spread are really low, which basically telling you the bond market is not expecting a recession anytime soon. Okay, that's basically what that's now. That's what's happened. The SP 500 is like the barometer for the whole market. Last year was 18.3. If you have 60% in equity and 40% in bonds, you will have lost 16.8%. If you have 40% in equity and 60% in bonds, that lost 15%. The bond market lost 30%. As you can see, there is no market high last year. Everywhere people lost money. Historically, if the equity or stock has gone up, bond will go down and vice versa. Last year, everything went down. And that's why the market last year was one of the worst markets as a whole in history because of both of them down. This year, we are hoping to see a better configuration with the higher yield that the bond market is paying now. Okay, and but bonds may provide diversification this year, diversification from the stock market. Bond income is now more meaningful. I mean, you can get 4%, 5% on treasuries. That you should always favor high quality at least a certain time. Treasury bond, mortgage-backed security, and municipal bond should do well. Thank you very much. Any question for me? I will ask Beth to answer all of them, but I probably have the answer to that.
Everyone.
Sure.
I think if you go back 9 consecutive quarters, they've been calling for a recession.
That's right.
And so at what point do I stop believing them? It's just like, it kind of feels like when you're at watching a game with friends, like the Super Bowl, and there's that one person who calls for every pass to be an interception. And then the interception occurs, as I told you. I feel like that's where we're at with the economy, that they're just like, and it's like, at what point does it become self-fulfilling, and does it spook consumers? And become the self-fulfilling prophecy, because the economy has been extremely resilient through just a very weird time globally.
A lot of they said the economists have projected the last 10 recession after the 8 that's happened or something. It's true, that's maybe, when people say recession going to happen, recession will happen. The issue is the pandemic. The pandemic really, the issue usually is the labor market. Remember, consumer are 2/3 of the economy. 2/3 of the GDP is basically consumption, people consumption. China now has almost 2/3 of its GDP coming from export. And the 5-year plan now is saying, let's be like the US, let's be like other countries. Let's have our own consumption. Yes, we will be less reliant on export and other people. That's a very important concept. And this consumer now got a lot of money last year. Tremendous amount of money. That's what's really kept the whole thing. And the COVID did change also the way people look at work and the digitation. Converting the economy or the sales part of it into online business. But they did in 1 year. They were expected in 10 years, because COVID forced that digitation, forced that online business to ramp up. And that's why also you see a balance in the job market, some area. Okay. So those factors really played a big role that this recession or the projection for this recession is different than the last one, because of the labor participation, the labor market really played a big role, and the handouts. The handouts were the highest historic. People were $2.3 trillion in people's pocket. And when you were putting that money in their pocket, they could not spend it because of this restriction of going to shops. Don't do it, just accumulate that thing. That's why we got, during the COVID, we got the highest saving rate. Now it's going down. But again, to answer your question, it didn't happen. Recession didn't happen because of those factors, because of the strong labor market, because of the handout that the government gave to people. But that's, now I think people are going through it. Probably the next 6 months or 7 months, that number should be dropping, especially in the people who have high propensity to consume. So the people who are at a lower economic end, because they spend more of their money in food and energy, etc.
Thank you.
Good. Any other question?
You think that the federal government with all the Bitcoin is gonna start regulating it like other countries there?
It's a big competition between these countries where the Chinese and other countries are trying to make it, and nobody want to be the last one to do it. And there is a segment of it that's probably going to do well, the segment that is tied to financial institutions, basically. But there's a lot of speculation in it. And the government is likely to have competition between the different branches of government, each one. Then the Federal Reserve 2 weeks ago had actually the Federal Reserve, the controller of the currency, the FDIC, they had a joint statement saying to people, saying to banks basically, stay away from this. Okay, stay away from crypto, because it's not something that we are letting you go into. And that's what was the big signal. Basically, the surprising thing today about the crypto, in January, most consumers stayed away from crypto or sold their crypto or lost money crypto. The run in January was mostly institutional, which is very surprising because these people should know better. But to answer your question, the federal government, the FDIC, the Federal Reserve, all these people are very cautious about it.
Yeah.
And other people in Congress are saying, let's regulate it. Let's put some rule in it. But I think it's an early thing. I think the Chinese are taking the lead in trying to have some kind of currency, and that's part of it is competition with the dollar. Same thing they're trying now in the Middle East, trying to say, we're gonna buy your oil, but it has to be in yuan, not in dollars. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in that sense. And
What's your view on precious metals?
I don't know nothing about precious metal. Honestly, I don't know. I think the dollar should do well, general, but I don't really have a good feel of what's up. See, part of it is which precious metal you are thinking about.
Gold, silver.
Well, there is a big one on see, that's why I'm saying I don't have the. I know small amount on each one of them, but the whole picture is not good. There is a big last few months, the central banks in the world have got a huge amount of gold. And that drove the price of gold. Now it's 19 something, went down to 1600, now it's 19. And gold went way up because of that. This is the first time, probably in 30 years, they bought that much, especially in emerging markets. A lot of people got worried when the Russia-Ukraine thing happened about the value of the dollars. And I'm going to be sanctioned and I'm not going to have my dollars. I'm going to pour some of my money in gold to support and a tremendous amount. Keep in mind, what the price of gold is basically central bank. It's a big part of it, but also China and India. The consumer, the average person buy a lot of it. And the other side of it is supply. Supply basically come from South Africa, from different places, and supply wasn't as high as usual, and that's what drove really the price. Then inflation play a role in it also. And I think gold should do fine. The other metal, I'm not sure. Follow more the gold because we have a position in gold, we have a small position in silver. We follow more of those than other precious metals. Gold have documents. The question is, will the bank keep, the central bank keep buying it? That's what's really drove the price. Now I think today is 920. That's big spike from 1600 a few months ago.
Mike Cannon, I guess the last question.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Fall, what is your view on this disconnect between the market and the Fed and seemingly the market's reluctancy to take the Fed at their word on their projected interest rate hikes, thus, inspiring the January rally? So how long is that rally going to continue, and when does that fizzle out because the Fed's going to stay true to their word?
Question. The Fed used to judge inflation. At the beginning, they said the inflation is just temporary. Okay. And then they changed their tune and said, no, it's not temporary. I'm going to just start raising interest rate at the fastest pace in history, 75 bps every time. Okay. And the market started doubting the ability of the Fed to really to understand what's going on. Okay. Because they really made a huge mistake at the beginning by saying, well, there's no inflation or it's going to be transitory. That started the whole thing, where they start, we really don't have confidence in what you are doing. Now, the economy has a lot of reasons. One of them is when the Fed in December go from 75 to 50, they said they're going to go to 25. People don't feel well. They are changing their tune. And also, if you look at the composition of the board now, the voting member now are more the dovish people. The hawkish people left Bullard and all the others. That's why when you hear the Fed chairman talking the other day, his language is completely different because his majority now is the people who want the more liberal side of the group, want the Fed to lower interest rate because they really want the labor market to stay strong. They want to stay strong. the combination of that. And also, a lot of people are happy that oil prices, the energy crisis in Europe did not happen. A lot of people see China opening going to help supply chain. Those are the factors that play, but clearly people did not believe the Fed, especially the bond market did not believe the Fed because the Fed keeps rising interest rate and the bond market rate will go down. And that's has to do with inflation expectation. If you look at inflation expectation today, for the 10-year, the market is saying by the end of the year, we'll have a 3% inflation. The Fed is not saying 3%, not 10%. And you have a disconnect between these people, as you said, how they view the market. The fear of the Fed is inflation become anchored. Anchored means people think, okay, inflation going to be here, I'm going to ask for a bigger wage next time, and then it's going to be a spiral like that happened in 70, and that's why they're trying very hard to keep that from happening. The time is, yep,
Okay, one quick question. With the job openings so high
yes.
and the job market so strong,
Yeah.
any projections on what it takes to retain the current workers? What kind of wage increases are they going to be expecting? And doesn't that also then put more pressure on the inflationary numbers as the wages go up?
Good question. The wage growth this year is 4.4%. 4.4% is above the 2% target actually the Fed had for general inflation for the whole inflation. It's going to take a lot more for them to force people to. First of all, you have to deplete all the cash that people have now. The result they got from the last 2 years. That's going to go through if you do that. And two, you have to change the mind of all people like me that it's not good to go back to work, COVID around. You see, there's a lot of retirement, a lot of people are going to leave because of that. You see, those have to happen really for the job market to go down. But the highest number of hires today are in leisure and restaurants. Okay, that's part of the economy. That service part is improving. That's where some of the inflation is going to come. But inflation in goods is going down. Good mean buying computer, refrigerator, etc. That inflation is negative now. The positive inflation comes from the service, and they are not going to get that down. That's as you said, some kind of labor going down. That's going to be very tough because of the after COVID situation in terms of people retiring, people coming back to work, etc. Hopefully, we're going to have a soft landing. Soft landing means we're kind of going to slow down, but we won't have a recession. We won't have really a big drop in the labor market. No question. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Let me grab notes here. We need our have James investment like twice a year. It's clear there's a lot of interest here. So thank you so much for coming. We do have a book. I think you've already signed it over there. Or he's going to sign. It's called Einstein. I think it's fitting. He's smart enough for that one. So thanks to Beth for getting that for us. Next week's greeters, I have Alex Zahara and Beth Hanwarder. Next week's speaker, back to back, really good with nothing against the other speaker we have, but we have Justice Sharon Kennedy next week. So that's always a great one. So let's see. Reminder, Monday morning at 0700, coffee at Wine Ends, and email goes out Sunday as another reminder. I think that's all I have. Anything else for the good of the group? Okay. Doctor, would you like to lead us in the national anthem?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, against the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. You all need to go home, take national anthem now. Have a wonderful, safe weekend.
More character.